There are people who, when asked about their childhood, do not know how to answer. Not because that childhood was completely terrible, and not because there was nothing worth remembering, but because somewhere in those years that should have been the most carefree, they missed too many chapters of themselves. They remember a few small pieces: a kitchen, a tense evening, a younger sibling who needed to be cared for, an adult who was exhausted, and a very small version of themselves, standing there trying to act like they were okay. Not every child who loses their childhood goes through a loud, dramatic event. Some childhoods end very quietly. They end when a 9-year-old child has to cook dinner for their younger sibling because their parents work until late at night. They end when a child becomes the mediator in adult arguments. They end when you learn to read your parents' faces to guess whether the house is safe today or not. Before you learned how to live freely, you learned how to live carefully. If you have ever felt older than your age from a very early time, subscribe to the channel and keep watching this video, because maybe you were not born too serious, too responsible, or too unable to relax. Maybe you simply had to grow up in an environment where being a child became a luxury. And the important thing is this: that child version of you did not disappear. It still lives inside you, affecting the way you love, the way you work, the way you rest, and the way you see yourself. In psychology, there is a concept called parentification. This is when a child has to take on a role that should have belonged to an adult. That child may take care of younger siblings, emotionally care for their parents, keep peace in the family, or become the one who has to understand things too early. Dr. Lisa M. Hooper, who has conducted many studies on parentification, has pointed out that these children often appear very mature, but that maturity is not necessarily true maturity. It may be a way of surviving. Because a child should not have to become the emotional pillar of the family. A child should not have to predict an adult's mood in order to protect themselves. A child should not have to believe that if they relax, everything will fall apart. But when that happens again and again, the child's nervous system learns to live in a state of alertness. Crisis becomes normal, stress becomes familiar, and peace, strangely enough, can start to feel unsafe. Many people who grow up this way develop very special abilities. They can read other people's emotions extremely quickly. As soon as someone walks into the room, they already know whether that person is happy, angry, or about to explode. They guess other people's needs before those people even say anything. They are good at handling situations, good at staying steady in a crisis, and good at making others feel reassured. From the outside, that looks like competence. But on the inside, sometimes it is the result of once not being allowed to be weak. The strange thing is that people who had to grow up too early are often not afraid of big problems. When there is a crisis, they know what to do. When everything is chaotic, they can still remain calm. But very simple things can make them uncomfortable. Asking someone for help, resting without feeling guilty, having fun without thinking they are wasting time, or allowing someone else to take care of them. Things that should feel completely normal can feel dangerous because in the past, being carefree may have meant losing control. As adults, they often become the person everyone relies on, the reliable one, the one who always replies when someone else is going through something, the one who steps in when everything becomes messy, the one who does not complain, does not ask for much, and does not bother anyone. Society loves this kind of person. Workplaces love this kind of person. Families also easily depend on this kind of person. But very few people ask in order to become someone who can always carry so much. How many soft parts of themselves did they have to give up? One of the biggest costs is that they easily confuse being needed with being loved. When they were young, maybe they only received attention when they were useful, when they were well behaved, when they did not create more problems, when they knew how to take care of themselves, when they made other people's burdens lighter. Gradually, their mind learned something very dangerous. If I am useful, I will be kept. That is why when they grow up, they are easily drawn to people who need to be saved, fixed, or taken care of. This is not necessarily a savior complex in the simple sense. At a deeper level, it is familiarity. To them, love once felt like responsibility. Closeness used to come with having to care for someone. Guess what? Someone wanted or make someone feel better. So when they enter a relationship, they may give too much, endure for too long, and only feel valuable when the other person needs them. If you have ever found yourself always carrying the heavier part in relationships, comment the number 8. Maybe you are not loving the wrong way. Maybe you are loving with an old operating system. Another thing is that stable love can sometimes feel strange to them. When someone is truly present does not disappear, does not make them prove themselves, and does not only come to them when they need something, they may feel unfamiliar with it. They may even feel uneasy. A part of them waits for something bad to happen. Because if in the past, peace was often only the silence before a storm, then as adults they may struggle to believe that stability can be real. They want to be loved, but they do not know how to rest inside love. They also often have a very strong need for control. Not always control over other people. Many times it is control over the environment, plans, emotions, time, and outcomes. They think ahead a lot. Even a small decision can trigger a series of scenarios in their mind. What if this happens? What if the other person gets upset? What if I am wrong? What if everything falls apart? Others may call them perfectionistic, anxious, or unable to relax. But in truth, this may be a child who once learned that losing alertness came with a price. Their exhaustion is also very real. It is not the kind of tiredness that disappears after one night of sleep. It is the kind of tiredness that lives deep in the nervous system. Since childhood, their body has been used to paying attention, preparing, and holding itself together. They may be sitting still, but inside they are still running. They may be resting, but their mind is still calculating. They may be very successful, very busy, and very responsible, yet they may have never truly known what it feels like to completely relax. And then, success becomes a trap. Many people who had to grow up too early achieve a lot. They are hardworking, disciplined, diligent, and resilient. But even after achieving things, they still do not feel like it is enough. Inside, there is always a voice saying, do more. Be better. Prove yourself again. Because their self-worth was once tied to being useful. They do not only want to succeed, they want to feel that they deserve to exist without constantly having to do something. Another thing they are very good at is emotional labor. They know how to calm a tense atmosphere. They know how to change the subject before conflict breaks out. They know how to smile at the right time to make others feel comfortable. They know how to hide their sadness so no one has to worry. But the more they do this, the emptier they feel. Because while they are taking care of the emotions of the entire room, no one asks where their own emotions are. That is why many people like this can be surrounded by many people and still feel lonely. Not because no one is beside them, but because no one sees the invisible effort they are putting in to keep everything okay. They do not want to complain. They do not want to be seen as weak. They do not want to say that they also need care. Because if your whole life you have been praised for being strong, admitting that you are tired can feel like failure. But healing begins when you dare to look back and tell the truth. I lost a part of my childhood. You are allowed to grieve that. You are allowed to feel sad that back then you had to understand too much too soon. You are allowed to feel pain for the small version of you who had to carry things that were never supposed to belong to them. Saying this does not mean you are ungrateful to your family. It only means you are being honest about your own experience. You also need to relearn that being needed is not the same as being loved. Your value does not lie in how much you can do, how long you can endure, or how well you can help others become okay. You are not only worthy when you are useful, you do not need to become the strongest person in the room in order to be loved. You are allowed to rest. You are allowed not to know. You are allowed to need. You are allowed to let someone step in and carry part of the weight with you. If you are learning to let go of the role of the person who always has to be okay, comment the number 9. Maybe this is the moment you remind the child inside you that they did very well. They were stronger than they ever should have had to be. They held things together for longer than any child should have had to. But now they do not have to run the whole world anymore. They are allowed to slow down. They are allowed to be cared for. They are allowed to become young again in their heart, even if that comes late. Thank you for watching until the end of this video. If this content touched some part of you, please like, subscribe, and share this video with someone who always appears strong but may have been tired for a very long time. Growing up too early was not your fault, but healing is the chance to stop living as if you are still the only child who has to keep everything from falling apart.